off a W. The last time we were there, we managed to pull off a W, so hopefully we bring him good luck. Some of you may be wondering, why does my voice sound horrible? Well, I've kind of been sick for, I guess it was 2.5, 3 weeks. And I'm doing a lot better now. I'm all better, but the problem is the voice isn't back yet. So it's going to take some time, but we'll get there.
Yeah, you've had a rough few weeks for sure.
Yeah. Short version is don't rub your eyes and don't rub your nose. It'll save you a lot of misery. Because it all started with an eye infection. Hey Jeremy, how's it going? It's good to see you. I know we haven't been live in a while. I've had some health issues. Plus we've been really busy locally fighting the solar farm. And other things, you know, trying to keep the garden alive in the drought. Which then turned into a downpour this weekend. So it's always something.
Yeah, I don't think we get gentle rains here anymore. It's either dry or horrific thunderstorms.
Yeah, it's never light rain. Yeah, I'm doing good, Jeremy. It's gonna take a while for my voice to come back. I'm also missing part of my hearing in my right ear, but it's a side effect of things I went through, so I should have it back hopefully sooner than later. But one of the things we wanted to tell you guys is we're going on a new adventure. It wasn't a planned one, but we've been dealing with a bit of a leaky back porch roof for a while, and honeybees decided to move in. We're not sure exactly when they moved in, but they've now made their presence very much known, and we have to get them out. So we're working with a local beekeeper, and the plan is he's going to help us get them out next Friday into a hive, and hopefully he can find the queen. But based on everything we've told him, he thinks that they pretty much have a hive in our porch roof. So that's going to be quite the adventure. They're going to have to tear open the porch roof and pull out the combs, put them into different hive box sections, and move them into that. So I learned something very new. I didn't know that there's a special vacuum to vacuum up bees. So I was like, how does one get bees out of your house? Because you can like look on YouTube and see people have bees like stuck in their kitchen or, you know, in their shed or whatever. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, Jeremy, we want to save the bees. We're big fan of the bees. A lot of people just want to kill them, which is sad, but we definitely want to protect them. We've always wanted bees, and like, you know, having honey and stuff. It just wasn't exactly on the agenda for this fall. But we'll see how it goes. We just got our bee toolkit in the mail. I think it was yesterday or the day before, and 2 books which I have in front of me. So one's about keeping honeybees, and the other one's kind of about like beekeeping for dummies. So we've been doing a lot of research. Our hive just came in the mail today. It's like a kit, so you actually get to build it. So I'm thinking I might do like an unboxing video maybe outside to show you kind of like what that looks like. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, is tomorrow the day we assemble it?
Yeah, I mean, can't pick a better day. It's my birthday. I mean, I get to build a hive on my birthday. That's pretty exciting. Tuscarora says, beekeeping is very cool. Enjoy the experience. I don't think I could do it. Yeah, I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a big fan of stinging things. We just ordered our bee suits, so that was an adventure in itself, because sizing for bee suits is really weird. They don't actually like tell you like how you're supposed to like convert your body measurements to like the bee suit measurements. So
basically our measurements don't add up to any sizes that are on the chart.
Yeah, so like we were helping each other out, and we're like,
this isn't even on the chart.
It's like,
what do you mean a small? There's no way.
Yeah. So like we based it on our local beekeeper's advice. He's like, go based on like normally what you wear, like clothing size, and then like you normally size up because you normally, you know, wear something underneath. But since I'm a lady and they're all like unisex sizing, that's not going to work, you know, because it's meant to fit men and women. So I had to size down. But hopefully they fit.
A little bit of view of downtown Reading up there on the left.
Yeah. The exit ramp's really backed up, I see.
Yeah, I'm glad we're not going that way today.
Yeah, thank goodness.
We're transitioning from 222 to 422.
But yeah, we're looking forward to it. This local beekeeper is going to give us some lessons on how to manage our hive. And he says if worst case, because there's always a chance, since it's so late in the summer season now that it's kind of coming into fall, he says there's a chance that, you know, our hive might not make it through the winter if the queen's not healthy enough. He says in that case he would help us in the spring, encourage a natural swarm to come to our hive to basically start over. So apparently there's ways you can encourage swarms to come. The way we did it accidentally was to not fix our back porch roof. And it looked cozy to them, so they're like, oh, let's move in. So.
We got a neighbor down the road that has bees.
I thought it was cool is when because my brother lives near the neighbor. When the hive came, because the hives are covered in a wax to like encourage the bees to go into it, the neighbor's bees were checking out the box for the hive. It's like they could smell the wax through the box.
It is beeswax they use.
Yeah, because they use beeswax.
At least on these. Some of them you paint. I guess some of them don't come with the wax. They just come, you paint them.
Yeah, I read for like our situation, it's better to do the beeswax because it'll encourage them to leave your house to go into the box. Whereas if you paint them, you have to like wax the paint, which is more work. Jeremy says, what's the current situation on the solar farm thing? Oh, thanks for asking. Right now, we have an upcoming supervisor meeting next week, which I will be live streaming and recording. We have a group meeting on Monday to go over some prep work from the Lions Solar Farm, which is the other one that's near us. That's about 110 acres that they're building. That one's been suffering erosion problems with the heavy thunderstorms, and that land's fairly flat. So we want to let our supervisors know that, hey, look at this solar farm nearby. They're having issues with their water management. You know, like their ponds aren't, you know, collecting water, and the one that is overflowing the road, which is not good. And then, oh yeah, the neighbor across the street, the farmer across the street in Lyons, his well got damaged with one of the storms, so they think it's related. I think the investigation's still ongoing, but they're pretty sure it's related. So we just want to make them aware, like, hey, you know, there is an issue with this. Solar panels are not, you know, pervious. It's going to run off, kind of like your roof, you know. If you don't have a gutter, it's just going to run right off.
That is one of the arguments that they try to make, is that they treat the panels as being pervious because they believe there's enough space between the rows of panels that the water can soak in the ground. Now, I don't know if that's really true or not, but at that farm in Lyons, the soil is definitely not, the plants aren't reestablished yet. There's still a lot of open ground, and the water is just channeling its way across the field when we get the heavy rains.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the description here on YouTube that you can check out. We took our licensed drone over there to get some aerial footage, and in the one you can definitely tell we have like a slideshow and then we have a video one that's kind of long. But if you watch either one of those, you can see the erosion underneath, and even around like the, I guess, what do you call those smaller power stations they have? Are those inverters?
I think those are where they put those inverter stations for every so often on the farm to convert the power from DC to AC.
So if you look at the inverter stations, you'll notice they're like kind of on their own little hill. There's like grass around it, but if you look, if you know what to spot for water erosion, you can see the channeling that the water's flowing around it. Because we live on a farm, so like we have a big hill, so we see erosion stuff. You know, it's just inevitable. So we kind of have a knack for picking it out.
I'm not sure. I think they're supposed to bring in some topsoil when they're done with it all.
Yeah, if you check out the Richmond Township supervisor playlist I have, I fixed the audio for some of their meetings, and they talked about that. And the one landowner says, how are they going to do that? Are they going to use a hoe? Because it's like the panels are up already.
The panels are pretty tight together too, the rows.
Yeah, so like I don't know how they're going to get the soil in there. Like, it's really tight. But you'll see in the drone footage for that. So for us as Windsor Township, we have right now, tentatively, we're going to have conditional use hearings in the first week of October, though that could change. They haven't given us a specific date yet. It's already been postponed, I guess, twice now, because initially it was supposed to be August and then it was supposed to be September. So I'm not sure if the October one's actually going to happen or not. We'll have to see. Jeremy says, I truly think solar energy is not going to work. I think they'll make it work better for individual houses instead of solar farms. We agree, Jeremy. It's going to be better, for people doing it individually for their own needs rather than taking up all the farmland. Our township only allows up to 20% lot coverage, which sounds like a lot, but when we compare it to another solar farm we've been talking about with our friends in Polk Township, which is in Monroe County, they can have a lot coverage of up to 75%. So they can put a lot more, I guess, density is the word for panels.
Yeah, because the sizes of the two projects are very similar. The one near us is on, I think, 486 acres. 76, you're right. It's the other one.
The other one's 486.
In Monroe, that is 486. So it's 10 more acres. But their rated generating capacity is 90 megawatts.
Compared to our 50.
Ours is only 50.
Yep.
And like you were saying about this with the solar, that it doesn't make sense on the large scale is the fact that you can't generate power like a utility generating station could, whether it's coal or gas or nuclear. Those facilities are online. They're producing power 24/7, except for the periods where they might be shut down for maintenance. Where solar, you're already only running at most 50% because you've got daylight only half the time. And then how many of those days do you have rain or clouds?
And our panels are fixed, so that, limits how much, effectiveness they are compared to like the rotating kind that Polk Township is suggesting that they're going to use, where they would follow the sun throughout the day.
Yeah, that probably helps them with their total generating capacity then.
Yeah, I would think so for sure.
It's hard to say, because, what do they say when they say 90? Do they mean that's the peak power, or is it some kind of average? From what we can figure out, it's peak power.
Yeah.
And when you look at the average here in Pennsylvania with the average weather, you only get about 20% out of that. So in the case of the farm proposal down the road from us, it's 50 megawatts, but 20% of that is only 10 megawatts. And that's an average.
Yeah.
And there's no plan to have any kind of on-site storage to store the power and use it, be able to use it at night. So it's either it's on or it's off. But the average is only about 10. And you compare that to, say, we got a nuclear power plant down the road here. We just got off of 422, but if we'd stayed on that for another 15 miles or so, we would have gone by the Limerick nuclear power generating facility. And there's 2 reactors there in Limerick. Each one of them produces over 1,000 megawatts of electricity.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Which is 10 times greater, 100 times greater than the average of this 476 acre solar farm. So when you look at how much land do you need to use to generate the same power of one nuclear power station, what does that come out to be? Over 40,000 acres.
It was a lot. I don't have my notes with me. I knew we figured out the exact, how many Windsor townships it would be and stuff. We covered every single part of it.
Yeah, we looked at that. It's like, how many townships would it cover? There were 3 townships in our area that it would completely cover in solar panels if you were trying to do that. And that's an average. It doesn't include the solution you would need to average that out, which would be a huge amount of battery storage.
Yeah. Jeremy says, I'm for coal and nuclear power and hydro. Solar equals only 3% of the total power input into the electrical grid. You're right. Right now it is only about 3%.
Yep, that sounds about right. One talk I listened to recently, they said 3% worldwide and 4% in the U.S. So, it's significant, but it's not going to replace all of that. How do you grow 4% to 40? That would be a huge undertaking to increase it by a factor of 10, and it doesn't solve the problem of what do you do at night.
Yeah, and we're not against solar, and neither is our local group. We just feel there's better places to put it. We have abandoned minefields up in Schuylkill County. There's, brownfields. There's warehouses they're always building. I mean, you could, if they design in the warehouses that they're building, they can make it that they put them on the roof, like in New Jersey, or even parking lots. Princeton University, Rutgers, also has solar panels over some of their parking lots. Like, there's other places they could build it without taking farmland that's actively being farmed.
That's the big problem. It's really going to consume all this farmland to really make a big difference. It might seem absurd, like how many acres of land to replace a nuclear power generating station, but that's the realistic solution that we have to look at, and that still doesn't solve the problem that the solar energy is intermittent. You put a nuclear plant online, it's going to be online 90% of the time. You shut it down for maintenance or when you need to replace the fuel rods. Where solar, it's constantly fluctuating. Again, a good local solution for people. You put it up on your roof or in your yard. If you got some acres in the back of your property, maybe you can generate a lot of your electricity that way. Push a little bit back into the grid.
I mean, look at my contact at the Gettysburg group that's fighting a 1,000-acre solar farm. He has some solar panels on his farm, but it only does about half of his power requirements.
Yeah. So on Interstate 176, we're heading south towards the Pennsylvania Turnpike. This is a really nice stretch of road. I always like driving through here.
It is a nice stretch.
Kind of connects the Pennsylvania Turnpike to the Reading area.
Jeremy says Americans use too much electricity.
Well, you could look at it that way. If you use less electric, this becomes more feasible. But I don't know what we do at night. When there's no sunshine.
You go to sleep, Dad. You go to sleep like the birds.
Kind of reminds me when I did some hiking up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. You stayed at these huts that were about a day's hike apart on the Appalachian Trail, and they had a limited amount of resources at these remote huts on the trail. So lights were out by, say, 9 o'clock.
Makes sense.
You went to bed. Of course, that wasn't really a problem after hiking all day.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably were ready for bed.
You were good. It's like, yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah, so we'll keep you guys posted on how it goes. If anybody's interested, we do have a GoFundMe for the Windsor-Berks Concerned Citizens. I'll put it in the chat. We're using the monies from that to help educate local people and also pay for our attorney, because we do have an attorney that's going to be representing us in these conditional use hearings. For those that are new, conditional use hearings are essentially like having almost like a mini court trial. So essentially your supervisors in your township become judges, and they preside over this mini trial. So you have your solicitor in the township, you have the solar company come, they bring their attorney, their expert witnesses, we can bring expert witnesses. It's a very interesting experience. If you want to kind of see what that looks like, I'd recommend checking out the Polk Township conditional use hearing that Scott and I covered. It was very, very eye-opening, especially when the solar guy admitted that their fire plan is to let it burn, which is not acceptable when it's near houses, in my opinion. Because we were thinking about that for our township, and there's about 50 homes that are really right there next to the property, and if that's what the solar company thinks they're going to do, that's not going to be okay with the residents.
I think that was one thing that was a surprise to me doing the research, because I've kind of always liked solar. I always thought it was kind of neat that you had this little thing that you can stick in the sun and it generates electricity. Years ago it wasn't very cost effective, Still isn't particularly cost effective, but it's a lot better now. So the whole idea sounds really great, but what I learned is that solar fires are a real problem. And it turns out that when you connect all these solar cells together, each cell gives you almost a half a volt. So in order to get usable electricity, you got to string them all together like a big Christmas tree light setup. So you stack all these things in series to generate a higher voltage. But the problem is, if you get above, say, 70 or so volts of DC and you have some kind of a bad connection, DC is it will arc across those bad connections, and you essentially create an arc welding situation, and that can cause a fire. If there's a bad connection inside the panel, that could start the panel on fire, or even externally with all these different connections, because there's thousands of panels in these solar farms. The one down the road from us that they're proposing, we estimate they're going to have 100,000 panels.
Which is just really hard to wrap your head around.
So there's connections for every one of them to put them all together. Which
means there's over 100,000 places there's a risk that something could go wrong.
And I would concede that the chance of an arc being caused is low, because if it's installed properly, the risk is probably low. But you multiply that small risk over 100,000 or more connections, and now you've got a higher probability that one of those connections could go bad and cause an arc, which could cause a fire.
And even if it's not the connections, like the panels themselves can have defects that you don't know about, and they can like overheat and then catch fire in themselves.
And it's one of those things with solar panels, there's no off button. You can't, it generates power if it's in the sun. So if you do have a bad day and you get an arc, that arc can get sustained because the panels are constantly dumping power into the arc. The only way to deal with it is to physically disconnect the system. But there's no real way to turn anything off. There's no off button. There's no breaker switch to throw.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing that it's even worse if they're using these battery storage systems on the solar farms, because we have these lithium fire issues. I think there's been 3 of them in New York State so far this year.
This summer, yeah. There's been 3 of them. The most recent one was in Lyme, New York. Just like Lyme disease. Harmful chemicals and materials that go into building solar panels, and have to think of fires that happen in nature, like lightning strikes. I mean, that's another thing that can cause issues. You can have hailstorms. That's one thing that can be very bad. Wind, if you have, tree branches nearby that could come and damage something. You just don't know. But they rely on 2 nations. You look into the national companies, this small, they're volunteer, they don't have the training to put out, huge electrical fires. And even if they had the training, they might not have the materials. Running water where we are, it's all well water, and typically for these electrical fires, you want to use foams, put forever chemicals into the ground table in the soil, which makes it not. If it's not safe to drink and use, that's farmland, which is part of the. Turn it once the project's done to farmland, and you won't be able to do that if you have to use these foams, and residents nearby could have contamination issues. So we have a lot of concerns. Whether or not our supervisors will take it seriously enough, I don't know. Only time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, we don't really know where they stand on it, which is probably appropriate, because if they're going to act like judges in the case, they really shouldn't show bias one way or the other.
Well, we did hear, because we kind of forgot about the August meeting because of the extra Wednesday in the month. We kind of missed that one, so not many people showed up. And I guess one of the supervisors made a comment that, oh, look, see, I told you they would go away. So I'm guessing that was a reference to the fact that our group members not many of them showed up to that meeting. So.
Yeah, I love that comment.
But we did pack the planning commission meeting after that, and apparently that surprised the guy because that supervisor happens to be the secretary for the township, so he has to go to both meetings and take notes. So, but it's interesting.
So instead of getting on the turnpike, where at the end of 176 there was the exit here to get to Route 23 and Route 10, so that's what we're on now. We're going to take 10 south for a ways. Pretty scenic driving. We might have some coverage issues though.
Yeah, so apologies in advance if the stream cuts out.
So we're getting into a little bit more rural scenic areas here.
It's so beautiful though. I love this route going to Delaware because it's just, you see all the farms. I love it.
This will take us to Honeybrook, which is kind of the center of that region.
Aw, Honeybrook, how sweet.
Yeah.
We're learning all things about honey, how you process it, David, so we can process it. So that'll be kind of cool.
I think we just have to see how it is, because the bees need some of that honey to get through the winter.
Yeah, but he says based on what we have, there's going to be too much. He's like, they're going to be. Jeremy says a wind turbine has no chance against a tornado. So imagine what would happen if a tornado hit a solar farm. Weather has a major role in all these infrastructure ideas. You're correct. I mean, I saw an article earlier this summer from Nebraska. They had a hailstorm. I forget how large the facility was, but it was pretty decent. And it wrecked the farm. The hail just destroyed all the panels.
My understanding is that the waste stream right now for solar panels is mostly stuff that's been damaged by weather.
Yeah.
Because they have a finite lifetime, and that's another thing that has all these solar panels when they reach the end of life. Apparently they degrade. Some numbers I've seen are 0.5% per year in output. So, that's not a terrible decline, but over the course of 20, 30 years, that's a significant drop in output. So I guess at some point it becomes more economical to replace the panel than to keep the old one running.
And it depends on what's in your panel as to if they can recycle it or not. It seems like the more silicon-based ones are easier to find recycling for. The ones that they're looking to use for our township, Windsor Township, have cadmium telluride in them. They admit it to cadmium and lead is going to be in them. So the fact that it has cadmium, it most likely has the tellurium in it, or telluride as they call it, because they tend to go together because of the way the chemistry works. And for recycling those, we've only found the company that First Solar, which looks like they work with Leeward Energy, which is the parent company of Mountain Trail Solar. They're all LLCs, so they kind of like shell companies. And then they have a contract. Leeward Energy has a contract with First Solar for their panels, and they're all cadmium telluride panels. But it says on their recycling that we'll take them back. Like you have to ship them back somewhere, but they don't tell exactly what they do to recycle them. So I wonder if they're sending them overseas.
I don't know. It is interesting. First Solar is the only U.S. manufacturer of solar panels, and their specialty are these cadmium telluride panels.
Yeah.
Apparently, when you take cadmium and telluride together, it's a very favorable combination for absorbing solar energy. They don't need the same thickness as you do with a conventional silicon wafer. It can be much thinner. So these are typically what they call the thin film panels. So they don't use a lot of material compared to the silicon-based panels, but you're still dealing with some rare materials. Of course, cadmium by itself would be very toxic.
Yeah.
It's bonded to the tellurium, so it's probably fine, but all bets are off if something catches fire.
Yeah, but the tellurium, like, how do you get that out of the panel? How do you extract it?
I don't know, but the other issue with tellurium is that it's one of those things where there's not a lot of it. Apparently about half or close to half of the world production of tellurium is going into these panels right now. So you can't really make them much faster than you're making them now. And then how do you recover that in the future? Because that sounds like something you'd want to recover.
Yeah.
But the problem is they have all these protective layers they have to create, over top and behind it. Everything is layered in these various.
Epoxy on the outside. So, yeah.
How do you recycle that? It really becomes a mess because you've got all these epoxies that you can't just wash them off. They're polymerized organic molecules, and they just don't degrade.
Tractor. Always carrying pumpkins.
Yeah.
Pumpkins. That's so cool. That's one thing I didn't get to plant this year in our garden. I took a year off.
Taking a break from the pumpkins.
It was just more, all the research for the solar and everything. It got to be too much. Because we were doing work meetings for that we had no time. I mean, we're lucky we got what we got out. I mean, I had to plant all of our eggplant because I accidentally soaked the whole packet with water. Oops. But the eggplant are doing really well right now. Except for the one got damaged with the hail last night and the wind. So we have to sneak him up tomorrow. But otherwise, the other ones are healthy.
We're at the boundary of Honeybrook.
I think we might have a horse and buggy.
That could be.
In the front.
It's the rush hour traffic jam in Honeybrook.
Jeremy says, look at the hazardous waste you end up having. Guess like nuclear waste, where you have to have special sites to store the waste. Yeah, I don't know. I know in the nuclear, you're right, that they have the special sites to store it, because we looked at, we did kind of like a deep dive early on in 2020 with Chernobyl. My brother was kind of like into like learning about radiation and stuff, so we're like looking at lots of videos with Chernobyl and how they store it and stuff. So
we learned how you do nuclear power wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
The communist style.
But there are safer ways to do it, and I think ultimately nuclear is going to be the better way rather than doing solar everywhere. When you look at the amount of land you need. What do those people know that we don't on the left?
They might. Maybe they're going left at the light and they're gonna just take that way.
Maybe.
We're gonna be staying on Route 10, so we're gonna have to go through it.
Jeremy says, look at, I'm not sure how you pronounce this, Paducah, Kentucky. Alright, I will look that up later. Do they have solar there or nuclear? Or is that a waste site?
I was just thinking about Paducah, Kentucky a while ago, believe it or not. I was looking at maps and I saw that. It's like, I think I've been there once. I'm trying to think if that's where I went. I interviewed at a Union Carbide plant somewhere, and I think it might have been, I'm not sure if it was there, but I think it might have been. I also think I had been to an interview at a plant in Charleston, West Virginia, but when I saw Paducah on the map, it's like, that sounds familiar.
You mean a chemical plant, right?
Yeah. It was a refinery, as I recall.
What is this person doing with their door? They're like opening and closing it all the time. It's kind of weird.
It's a good time to make some adjustments.
Yeah.
Nobody's going anywhere.
My dad's a chemical engineer by trade, so that's why he was talking about checking out chemical plants. Formerly. Now you're more, how would you describe it? Radio engineer?
More electrical oriented.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's something else we can talk about. There's before we go there, one of the things that they like to do with some of these solar farm proposals is propose that they're going to put like pollinator seeds underneath the panels to like grow things for bees.
Yeah, so it'll be good for honeybees.
But
right?
we live in a big migration corridor for many birds of prey, hawk mountains near us, and they actually wrote a letter supporting our fight against this farm. They don't like any solar farms that are over 30 to 40 acres because it can pose a hazard to migrating birds, because the reflection of the panels can sometimes imitate reflections of ponds. But also, they're against the pollination gardens that the solar companies push, because they draw in a lot of insects, and then all the insect-eating birds then are drawn to the insects, and then the birds collide with the panels, which obviously can have negative consequences for the birds. So, just food for thought. The other thing is some people are concerned about is if they do the gardens like that, like how are they gonna maintain them? Like, are they gonna leave them like cut to a certain height? Because this spring we had a drought probably for 2.5 months. We didn't get much rain at all. The ground was like turning into concrete.
I don't think it was that bad. It was last year.
No, it was bad this year. It was bad. I mean, we were digging and it was like the ground didn't want to dig and the water didn't want to go in. But like if we get a drought and that stuff all dries out, that's, you know, another risk of fire. Like if there's a fire, that's gonna like light up like a Christmas tree, you know? Like that's gonna be bad. Jeremy says Paducah, Kentucky produced enriched uranium, like Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Oh, interesting. Did not know that.
Didn't we give Russia control of a lot of uranium supplies around the world?
I think you're right about
Thanks
that.
to the Clinton business. When she was Secretary of State.
I do remember that. What was it? Wasn't it with Iran? It was.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, for some reason I thought it was Iran. Let me look it up. You might be right.
It's almost like we're planning to be energy starved here in America. That's literally the planning. Yeah, it's funny. You look at Norway is probably one of the leaders in terms of their conversion. Oh, well, I guess I'm blocking somebody in here. And no room to go either.
Yeah, there isn't anywhere you can really go.
Well, we're going to be moving, fortunately, so it should fix the problem. This is really painful coming through here.
Yeah, it usually isn't.
I didn't expect it to be like this.
Oh, not today, Light. Not today. Yeah, you're right. It was Russia. I think it was Russia. A little hard to read my phone. It's a little blurry. Jeremy says, we need our oil companies and coal companies to get back to being energy independent. Yeah, I agree. It would probably be good to have that.
Yeah, remember what they did with the strategic oil reserve? I never heard anything about them refilling it.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Is the plan to keep that low so we would have trouble finding a war?
I guess you could analyze it multiple ways. If you keep it low and you run out of, quote, run out, then you're forcing people to this green technology. I mean, I just saw something last night on the high wire with Del Bigtree where they were talking about, what was the U.S. Energy, I forget the lady's name, but she wants the military to go all electric vehicles by 2030, and I just burst out laughing because there's no way that's happening, number one. And number two, if they did it, we would be a joke in terms of our military, because you're not going to have charging stations everywhere the military goes. It's just insane.
Either these people are really dumb, which is a possibility. I haven't figured this out yet. They're either really dumb or they're doing everything to the advantage of the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. Oh, goats. That's cool.
I guess another possibility is that, yes, they are dumb, and yes, they are working for the CCP.
I was going to say it could be both. I mean, I guess the other option is they're working for the World Economic Forum.
I just kind of look at it as, what makes America more secure, doing any of these things? How does have electric military vehicles make us more secure? It doesn't.
I would say that would make us weaker.
Makes us more vulnerable.
Oh, let's go to war. Oh, it's cloudy today, guys. We can't we can't drive. Jeremy says, tell that to the army with an electric tank that weighs 40 tons. Yeah, I know, right? That's why I laughed. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It just, look, a horse and buggy.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to know where they make their hats. I need to get one of those nice straw hats.
There's another one.
My head overheats so bad with my hair. You know? It kind of reminds me of when we covered the Cutler town hall protest a few weeks ago, right before I got sick. We actually did get to meet an Amish gentleman who was very polite, and he arrived in a horse and buggy. And I felt so bad for him when he was leaving because his horse was short-circuiting pretty bad.
You might say he was having engine trouble.
Yeah, his poor horse was not being very cooperative, and the other Amish person that we knew, that he no longer lives that way, but he lived that way for a long time. He said he could tell it was a young horse. He's like, it can take up to 5 years for a horse to become well trained in terms of what he's supposed to do. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I always like to give them as much room as I can and slow down.
It doesn't take much to startle them, and I feel so bad for them because cars are scary when you're a horse. Jeremy says, China's in on this. Oh yeah, China's definitely infiltrated the U.S., in all facets of life, politics, everywhere, It's a shame. Trevor Loudon is really good at exposing the infiltrations, especially in our political representatives. He has some really good information about that.
Yeah, he's working on a series of books about all these senators and U.S. representatives that have ties to communism. And unfortunately, it's a fairly long list.
Yeah.
It could be a few books from what he was saying.
I admit I bought both of them.
Well, I think that you bought the senator books because those are the ones that are out now, aren't they?
He has one of them out already.
Okay, so there's another one coming out for senators.
The one is a 6-book series, so that one's going to be ouch in terms of getting them all once
The
they come out.
House of Representatives.
Yeah. But I couldn't help myself to get both of them because, Trevor Loudon was in person, so he autographs things, and because we've covered some of his events in the past where he's spoken, he actually put in really nice personal, inscriptions with his signature and date, which was really cool. So
he does a short show on Epic TV called Counterpunch.
Yeah, it's not super regular though. It's kind of when he has time. I know he just did say recently at the event that we covered in York, PA, that he's starting up. I think he said he was starting his own show. So
yeah, that's right.
you can go. Let me look up his website.
I think it's trevorloudon.com.
Yeah, that sounds right. Let me just confirm.
I'm not sure how our coverage is going to be through here, but we'll find out. But his show talks about the infiltration of communism in the U.S. and how pervasive it has become. It's another one of those eye-opening things when you start going into it.
You're correct. It's trevorloudon.com. There you can find his books, you can find his articles, and I believe his show is also on there as well. Jeremy says, I appreciate you two for keeping us informed as to what's going on. This country is heading into the wrong direction. I agree, Jeremy, it is. We're trying our best to wake people up. It's hard, though. He says there are 70 Chinese illegal immigrants that the Department of Homeland Security lost track of. Oh, I'm not surprised. They can't seem to keep track of anybody who's coming across the border. I mean, there's tons of kids that are, they don't know where they are.
There's a lot of Chinese nationalists coming across the border.
Yep.
What are they coming for?
Yep. They're not vetting any of them. I know the New York City, is it Mayor Eric Adams? Eric Adams or something like that?
Yeah, it's Eric Adams.
He's finally saying, no more, I don't want any more. In terms of the illegal immigrants coming to his city. He's like, we're full. And it's like, you're the one that said that you're a sanctuary city. It's crazy. So it's interesting to see how he's twisting his views now that it's in his front house, front door, But I've seen some videos lately out of New York City, and it's scary. I would not go there. I don't think you could pay me to go there. I know one of the people that we follow, first responder Joe. He was part of the convoys as like independent media, and he was there covering some of it. But he ended up having to end his trip early because he got sick, which was unfortunate. But it's scary. They're all young men of military age, and they're acting like animals. I mean, I can't put it any nicer, unfortunately. It's just like trash in the street. It's awful. It really is. Oh, some shade.
Another traffic light.
But this one's shady. I'll take the shade. It's cooler.
We're about 5 miles north of Parksburg, which is where the Route 30 is located, and what they called the main line, the early railroad that went through that. There's still a railroad now, but that was one of the early routes, east-west. U.S. Route 30, also one of the early coast-to-coast highways, too.
Oh, interesting.
The Lincoln Highway. It was a rough drive through Pennsylvania because there's a lot of steep hills and turns on the Lincoln Highway, the original route.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of, we were looking up which route to go to New Mexico, because we have an upcoming solar eclipse in October, and we were looking at the Natchez Trace Parkway, seeing the different routes that where that goes, which was based on Indian roads, where they would use them for transportation to get to places. It's really fascinating. You said you actually drove on the part of the Natchez Trace Parkway back in the day with your mom.
Yeah, back in the early 80s. I had never heard of it before, just kind of discovered it. Was traveling to Houston, Texas for work, and just kind of driving along and seeing the sights, and saw it on the map. It's like, oh, this looks interesting. It was a nice ride. It's kind of going in the right way. It goes from Nashville to Natchez, Mississippi. So it's kind of a northeast, southwest route. I think we got an issue with the truck. He couldn't make the turn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Which is what's making this intersection a mess. It looks like he's kind of, like the trailer is slanted.
Oh, dear.
Like he's tried to make the turn, and he ran up on the bank.
Is it a tractor trailer or a farm trailer?
It's a tractor trailer.
That's the other thing that we're concerned about with the solar farm, is the number of tractor trailer loads that have to come in on the rural roads. It's over 216 trucks, like about 216 truckloads just for the panels alone. And that doesn't even include inverters, wire, the poles to put in the ground, the piles, like they call them piles because they pile drive the posts into the ground, tools, whatever else they need. Excuse me, sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. I see what you mean though about the truck being sideways kind of.
Yeah.
That truckie's having a bad day. Jeremy says, like Chicago. The video is still good. Awesome. Yeah, we weren't sure about the service. Jeremy says, I watched the history on the Lincoln Highway. Millions of dollars getting wasted. Oh my. He is stuck on the bank. Oh, he took out part of the rock wall. Ouch. That's rough.
These old routes aren't very truck friendly, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm guessing he missed the signs about follow the alternate route. cheaper if you're over so many feet long.
Well, he was probably coming up Route 10 north, and I don't know, maybe somebody didn't let him make the turn wide enough. He had to try to make it tight.
Yeah, I don't know. That's rough.
Yeah, I remember you were looking up like we were trying to figure out how many solar panels are they actually going to put on this 476 acre project, and the number we came up with was 100,000 panels. And then you looked up how they package them all and how many fit on a truckload, and it's a full truck, right? It's like 50
It's
some
a
feet.
53-foot long truck. They fit 460 panels on it, so there's 46 in a box and 10 boxes fit on the truck. Just keep in mind, you know, they got to wrap it up so they don't get broken in shipping.
Yeah.
So it's got added bulk, you know, packing. But you know, you got to have inverters, and like I said, the poles to put them on, the wires. I guess there's some kind of mounting hardware too, I would guess, of some type.
There's the substation equipment they'll need too. Basically, have to bring all that out on these small farm roads.
Yeah, which is not meant for that.
Most of those small township roads, they don't even have lines on the roads because they're not big enough. They might have a yellow line, that's it.
So that's one of the things that we want to put on as a condition if for some reason this were to get approved, that they would have to do a road bond. They'd have to redo the roads and repair the damage to the roads, because that much weight on the roads is going to damage the roads. Because they expect that construction alone will be about 18 months if all goes well, which, you know, you never know what's going to happen.
It's going to be rough for everybody living in the area too.
I mean, even where we are, like even just half a mile away, we're probably going to hear them pile driving, because my friend in Gettysburg said pile driving is deafening. Like when they do that, it's deafening. So we'll probably hear it echoing off our barn, I'm guessing. And I know the local Alliance solar farm has been having issues with the workers not parking inside the actual construction site. There's like this one road that goes to a few houses, and they've been parking like in the road and having meetings in the road, and the residents were complaining like we can't even get out of our own driveway, they go to work. Just, that's not cool. And like the sweeper truck was like closing down the road the one day, and yet every time the engineer goes out for his planned visit, he's like, well, I don't see any of that. Well, I have a feeling it's probably because your visit was planned, because when the supervisor was going out on an unplanned visit, he'd see some of the stuff. So it's amazing how the difference between a planned visit and an unplanned visit, what you can see.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting an OSHA visit. They don't exactly call you in advance, say, hey, by the way, we're going to be coming over.
Yeah.
Inspecting your safety.
Yep. Unfortunately for the Lions Solar Project, there was only a few residents that were fighting it. They didn't have much support. So at least I feel we're in a better position as Windsor Township. We have over 60 people. Our mailing list is growing. We have several, I think at least 200, I think, on Facebook that are following our story. Some are following through the GoFundMe, which Scott and I wrote up really detailed information on the GoFundMe, and has like the drone footage on there, so you can really understand like the project and what we're up against. And again, we're not anti-solar, we just feel there's a better place for it than on productive farmland.
It's going to eat up so much farmland.
Yeah.
Because where else can you put something that big? Oh yeah, you could put it up on the mountain, right? And cut down the forest. That sounds like a great idea too, doesn't it?
Well, that's kind of what they... Oh, that guy almost got T-boned.
Is this one mine?
Yeah, yours is in the front. The guy came out of the Wawa, and the guy going to the traffic light was going too fast, almost hit him.
Yeah.
But Polk Township, they want to cut down 50 acres of forest for theirs, which is insane. And some of them are like really big trees. I know the one supervisor's like, you're going to replace the trees, right? How old are the trees that you're going to replace them with? And they didn't really have an answer for that. It was more of a, we will comply answer. So.
I mean, where are you going to plant them?
I don't know. You know, it's just... Because that's the other thing that typically happens is they'll plant some, you know, buffer trees and stuff, and oftentimes the solar company doesn't take good care of them, so they tend to die in the first year, some of them. So that's something else that we're going to put in as a condition, that if it were to get approved, that, you know, you guys are responsible for, you know, putting in a certain size, you know, buffer tree, and if it dies, you replace it. It's not our responsibility.
Now, some of that's give and take, because that's not explicitly in any kind of ordinance. And that's really the lesson here, is that local municipalities need to harden their ordinances against this sort of thing if they don't want it, because it doesn't really matter how many of us don't want it for whatever reasons. Some maybe just don't want it because they don't want it, versus we don't want it because it destroys farmland. If it follows the rules that are set down, there's not much you can do to stop it. You know, you might be able to persuade your supervisors, if you've got a really strong opposition, that they might be really strict about their interpretation of the ordinances. But if the solar folks comply and they still get denied, they've got a good legal position to appeal it.
Yeah.
And that's probably what they'll do. And then it'll go into the courts, and then who knows what can happen.
Yeah, that's kind of what's happening with the Gettysburg project right now. I think they're on year 4 now in terms of litigation. They have a hearing coming up on September 11th in the Commonwealth Court. So their initial thing was the initial proposal got shot down. They came back with a new one before they could finish rewriting their ordinance, their solar ordinance. The solar company came back with a new one. So it was grandfathered into the old ordinance requirements, and the supervisors were going to vote no during the conditional use hearings, but essentially the solar company threatened them, which was all recorded by the court stenographer that's at these hearings. He or she takes all the notes and literally types it all and records it all. So because of that, the township's residents actually joined together. They have their own group. They sued their supervisors. So that's what's going on right now. And they won in their local court, and the judge wrote a blasting thing about the solar company's plans, but the solar company's appealing it. So that's what's going on in September 11th. It's hearing for that.
I think often what can happen is a developer can apply pressure, and so the elected officials cave in because they don't want to get sued, because they figure all these people will sue us if we don't approve it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're giving our supervisors, or I should say our neighbors' supervisors, because technically they're not ours, we're kind of letting them know, hey, you're going to get sued the other way too.
Yeah.
If you do approve this thing, we're coming after you.
Yeah. We're just basically putting them on notice, like, just being afraid of being sued shouldn't be the reason why you vote yes, because we will sue you if you don't follow the ordinance. And we've put together documents. We put together a packet that was about 67 pages. A lot of that was mostly additional attached source materials as evidence to support what we were saying. I think our actual document was about 14 pages that we wrote with our research committee. And we basically pointed out where their conditional use application wasn't meeting our ordinance. And we gave it to our supervisors, the supervisors. I call them our supervisors because it's our group. But like Scott says, like, we only have part of Windsor where we live. We're mostly in Greenwich Township. But we consider it our fight as well, so. Jeremy says, lumber and paper companies replace trees that they cut down. Yeah, that's a good point. What's interesting about the solar stuff is, have you ever heard anything else that requires a decommissioning plan? Like, it's like, never hear about that for anything else.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered about that, because you don't talk about that sort of thing with any other kind of development, like the warehouses. We're getting a lot of warehouses built in our region. There's no decommissioning of a warehouse 30, 40 years down the road. All these things are done under the guise of being temporary, and maybe that has something to do with the tax benefits that they get, because our understanding here, at least in Pennsylvania, is that the actual improvements that they make, the solar panels, the steel infrastructure, the substation, none of that gets taxed, with property tax, because we have property tax here. We have it, the schools are, the county does, the local municipality does. None of those improvements get added to the estate.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So I don't know if that's all because they give it this temporary label. It's like, well, 30 years from now we'll come back and we'll tear it all down and it'll be farmland again.
Well, they have to restore it all, which is going to take work. But, yeah.
I don't see that sort of thing happening.
Jeremy says it affects everyone. Yeah, it does. I mean, if that thing were to catch fire, the smoke would affect us. Even the water erosion is going to affect us because we're downstream of where some of this is, and that's going to affect our streams. It's going to affect the city of Reading, their water, because our water all goes into the Maiden Creek, which eventually goes to their water supply. So.
Yeah, either it drains to Maiden Creek,
yeah,
and the Maiden Creek flows into the Schuylkill further downstream.
Yeah.
So it all ends up going into the Schuylkill, which eventually goes to the Delaware, into the Delaware Bay. It's very hilly where this is being proposed too, so
the erosion is going to be high risk.
It really worries me if they break ground, if they do it anything like they did with the other one. They literally open up on the bottom of their property.
Yep, there's two.
So I think the next town is Cochranville, and I think that's where we turn onto Route 41, which takes us towards Newark, Delaware, which is where we're headed, University of Delaware.
Yeah, let me check the traffic. Yeah, we go left up here on Newport Pike. It's called Gap. Oops, sorry. Thingy for the phone fell off. Gap, Newport Pike, sound familiar?
Yeah, something like that.
And then we turn right onto Jennersville Road.
Maybe.
Which then turns into 796.
That sounds right.
Okay. It's been a while since we've gone.
It has been. I think the last time I went this way was when we went to another Delaware game.
Yeah.
Which probably was 2 years ago.
Well, we did slightly different that one because we were coming from Harrisburg.
Oh yeah, I remember that. We had gone to a rally, right?
Yeah, a medical freedom rally. So I think we came in slightly different. But yeah.
But this is a nice route.
It's very scenic. The corn's getting pretty big. Even our corn, I think that we might be ready to almost harvest our corn in our garden. Jeremy says, saying if it passes in your neck of the woods, it can happen in mine, so it'll affect me if it passes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to look at the grand scheme of things.
And all this is being driven by these federal subsidies that were approved. When they shoved the Green New Deal into the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. And these solar companies are making it hard for farmers to say no. They're offering, at least in our area, we've seen numbers between $2,000 and $3,000 per acre per year.
Which is a lot.
For these long-term leases to convert their land to solar. So, it's a very economically tempting thing to do, especially, if you're getting getting up there in years and you don't have any kids that want to take over the farm.
Well, there's some solar panels right here on our right. I know you guys can't see it, but there's an array right there.
I saw a glimpse of them. Yeah, looks like a row of maybe a dozen.
Yep.
Pretty long ones.
Jeremy says it's all about the money. Yep. And that's what these LLCs do. They go in, they get the subsidy because they get that all up front, and they build it, and then they end up flipping it down the road to someone else.
Yeah, we're seeing that with ours in particular. They created a shell corporation called Mountain Trail Solar, but that's owned by a place called Leeward Energy, which is in Texas. And this is what they do. Each project, they create a shell corporation to run it. And then from our understanding is that at least some of these companies, I don't know if Leeward is one of them, they'll sell it once it's done because they get I think it's a 30% subsidy.
Yep, federal subsidy.
And that's what makes this thing worthwhile.
And they openly admitted in the letters that this wouldn't be worth doing if it wasn't for the subsidy, like in the letters that we've received.
Right.
It's like they brag about it.
But Leeward itself in Texas is now owned by a Canadian company. I think it's called
OMERS.
OMERS, that's the abbreviation for it. It's some kind of it's actually the development arm of the parent company that is actually the pension fund for Ontario, Canada. So it's a company that manages pension funds for Canadian federal workers in the province of Ontario. And they essentially own Leeward Energy. It's in their portfolio. And Leeward Energy created this shell corporation to develop this specific project. So essentially, you've got all this money going to a foreign entity. Taxpayer debt, essentially, being shoveled into the pocket of a foreign corporation.
And it's something similar for Lions. Like, we looked up Lions. I forget the name of theirs, but
Belltown, I believe, that's out of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, so it's these international organizations coming in with shell companies to make them seem like they're American, and taking American farmland and turning it into solar when there's better places you could do it. It's just wrong, in my opinion.
It's wrong in every which way.
I mean, it's not American companies.
The money doesn't even stay in the U.S., these subsidies.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, Jeremy. Jeremy says Canadian National Railroad bought out the Kansas City Railroad. I didn't know that.
I think eventually we're not going to own anything.
Is this part of the whole World Economic Forum, you'll own nothing and be happy?
Yeah, I think it could be.
It's interesting. I don't agree with that phrase, by the way, but
it's been a problem here in the U.S. for a long time, is that, and this is the problem with having a constant trade deficit, is you keep buying more stuff than you're producing, essentially. So how do you pay for that on a national level? You essentially got to sell your assets. So we've got businesses being sold to foreign entities.
Yeah. Our turn's coming up in about 1.5.
Makes sense. I mean, look at all the land here that China owns. China's buying up our farmland.
Bill Gates is buying up farmland too. I don't trust him either.
I keep hearing about banks buying up properties, but I don't know much about that.
Yeah, I haven't had time to research that one.
Look at the Maui situation.
Yeah.
All the native folks happen to have their houses burned down.
That's fishy. I personally feel that Maui was intentional attack. I don't think it was natural.
Be careful what you say.
Oh, I know. YouTube might put me in jail, but you know what? I don't care. If I can't be on YouTube, I'll be on Rumble. It's fine.
Are we on Rumble today?
Yeah, we are on Rumble. We don't have anybody chatting with us on Rumble, though, right now.
You're able to check?
Yeah.
That's good. 'Cause that might be all we got left soon.
Yeah, YouTube has decided to put in their crazy new policy. You can't talk about health stuff at all unless it agrees with the WHO and all that. So I'll probably get nicked on that at some point.
It's their Pandemic 2.0 censorship plan.
It's the plan for COVID-23 through COVID-24, you know.
Yeah.
Gotta have it for the election cycle, guys. Wait, the turn's coming right up here, though.
Yeah.
But I know the service up here can be a little bit iffy, so Jeremy, I'm sorry if we end up losing service.
796.
But yeah, Maui, seeing all that, and that the natives didn't want to sell their land, and it's like one of the most valuable sections of land, and they all got burned down. I don't think it was natural.
Maybe you can help me with remembering this, because we were watching some Highwire episodes last night. What was the CEO that was saying about confiscating people's lands for wind and solar?
That was Piers Morgan, I think it was.
What was the company that he's? It's one of the big banking or investment companies,
isn't it just
right?
called Piers Morgan?
No. I don't even know if that's the right name. But it was some high up financial guy suggesting that we need to use eminent domain to develop wind and solar, because we got to do it fast. And that's kind of, I'm seeing this more and more that...
No, it's J.P. Morgan. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's J.P. Morgan.
J.P. Morgan.
I got the Morgan part right.
What's the guy's name? The CEO of J.P. Morgan.
Jamie Dimon, D-I-M-O-N. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Yeah, he's the one that was quoted by saying, he thinks we should be taking people's property by eminent domain.
He's calling on governments to evoke eminent domain to fast-track solar and wind farms.
Now, if that's not consistent with the, you'll own nothing and be happy scenario, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I'll put that link in the chat. Jeremy agrees with me that Maui's fishy. He also says Canada has track in 3 countries, Canada, US, and Mexico, and they own a shipping company, Keystone, of the Great Lakes. Sorry, your chats just came through, so.
Interesting.
Well, T-Mobile service isn't as good through here, so it was lagging a little bit. But yeah, it was J.P. Morgan that wanted to do it. Which is just wrong. This is the other thing that gets me. If something is so good, why do you have to force it on the people? If it's so good, wouldn't people want to buy your product? I mean, you can talk about the unicorns that we were talking about with COVID. If it's so good and you don't get sick, why would you have to bribe people? Like, here, have some French fries, have some, whatever.
This is what communists do.
If it's so good, you shouldn't have to be bribed into it or given a gift card to say, hey, go get this, If it's so good, you should want it.
The communists decide this is what we want. We think this is a good idea for the greater good or whatever, the collective, whatever term you want to use there. And so they impose it on everybody.
Yeah.
And policy of communism, it doesn't work well because it interferes with the natural market forces. They think they can do better. It's kind of like, we can outsmart Mother Nature.
It's like what Ed Dowd said the other day on the Highwire, that actually read and understand and comprehend and make their own decisions. And they got to do that for you because you're a child.
They justify it that way, don't they? It's like, well, these people just don't know.
You don't know better because you're just a child. You don't know how to do this.
You're just an idiot. You can't think for yourself. We have to make these decisions for you.
Yeah.
We have to save the world.
And you don't know how to do it, so we're gonna do it for you. So. Jeremy says it's like the UN being given climate emergency powers. Yeah, that is very scary. I do not like that at all. I also don't like the pandemic powers that they're trying to get, which is destroying, sovereignty, national sovereignty and such. He says, let the people decide what they want. I agree. Let the people decide. If they want solar in their home, let them have solar in their home.
If we really backed out of the energy market, because I know there's been subsidies for all sorts of things, based on different arguments, and I guess we can go back and forth on the pros and cons, but if we backed off and let the marketplace just function, people would make the right economic choice in the long run. Because if we're really running out of these resources, you would switch to other resources. But they don't want that, because the issue isn't we're running out of these resources. The issue is we're putting too much carbon dioxide in the air. So now we gotta intervene, because it's not good enough that eventually these fossil fuels might run down and we switch over to something else. We gotta make it happen now, because if we don't, pick a date, it's gonna be the end of the world. It's kind of like a religious cult at this point, that the end of the world's coming unless we do this. If we don't stop burning CO, creating CO2, we're gonna all be roasting. We've gone to, what is Tedros in the WHO? Was it him that said
global boiling?
We're now in the global boiling phase.
Yeah. When you said CO2, you triggered a memory for me. Berks County Patriots had a speaker that was talking about how they're wanting to do this CO2 sequestering.
Oh, boy,
which is kind of like a pipeline that they pipe. I don't quite understand how exactly it works, but the gist of it is, I think, is somehow they get CO2 pressurized into these pipes, and they're trying to put it into the ground. But I don't know much about it.
Yeah, they're literally building a pipeline to nowhere that they just put it in the ground, and they just fill it with liquid carbon dioxide, and that's...
It doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, again, if the mindset is we got to get the carbon dioxide out of the air, that's where you go with that kind of thinking is, okay, how do we get carbon dioxide out of the air? Oh, let's condense it and pressurize it and put it under the ground in a big pipe, in a big tank or something.
Yeah, and the latest thing is Bill Gates is talking about cutting down trees.
Cutting down trees and burying them?
Yeah, which, last I checked, I could be wrong, but trees take in CO2 and they put out oxygen, right?
Right. It used to be, let's plant more trees. That's how you fight global warming, because the problem is places like the Amazon forest are getting clear cut.
Yeah, so why would it make sense to cut down trees to lower carbon emissions? I can't wrap my head around it. And then you add in the fact that, as human beings, animals, whatever, anything that's living and breathing is putting out CO2. So when they get to the point where they say, oh, we're still putting out too much CO2, what are they going to do? Are they going to literally kill people?
Well,
I'm a forward thinker, so I like to try to think ahead where this is going.
What solves this problem on a large scale?
Yeah.
Population reduction, right?
Yeah, which people are like, oh, that's a conspiracy. No.
If you reduce the population 90%, you're going to reduce carbon dioxide emissions 90%.
Yeah. Makes you wonder, right? You think about everything that's happened the last few years, and what's gone on in terms of neglect and such.
Now, I'm not saying that population reduction isn't a good idea, but if it's a good idea, sell people on the idea that it's a good idea, convince them that it's true, and then people will make the right choice for themselves.
Yeah.
But whenever you impose things, pursue their own happiness, liberty, and freedom.
Yep. Which we're very pro-freedom. We think people should be able to, decide what works for them.
Unless you're a solar farm developer, then we don't believe that they should have freedom.
Well, there's a right way and a wrong way to do solar, in our opinion.
Well, when you think about it, with all these zoning ordinances and such, it's not very libertarian. All these rules and regulations you have to follow.
Yeah. But Well, I mean, look at the Lions example. This solar company literally had people go back to work after a 10-inch rainstorm. I think it was July, but I could be wrong. This summer, it happened this summer. 10-inch rainstorm on a Sunday. Went back to work on Monday as if nothing ever happened. The supervisors were furious with them, and they couldn't do anything about it.
Well, look at the other side of the coin, right? You've got a work crew that you're putting up in motels for months, I guess, that are there working on this site doing the project. I mean, what are they supposed to do on Monday morning? Just give them all the day off and pay them for staying in their motels?
I mean, I get that, but they made a mess of the roads. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
they damaged the land.
It is a mess, and it's a shame about the land.
If they hadn't made a mess of it all and damaged the land in the process, that'd be one thing. But they did. So I don't know. Where do you draw the line? I guess. Right.
You certainly can't blame the workers. You know, they're just doing what they're doing because.
Well, they're doing what they're told.
There are probably folks that go from one project to another. That's their career right now. That's the work that they're in.
And that's the other thing that's hilarious, but not hilarious, is these solar companies trying to say, oh, we're going to make all these local jobs. They never use local people. It's always outside people they're using. Because, the people in Lions are coming from California and Texas. Like the lady said, that license plates are California and Texas. They're not PA. You can't tell me that California and Texas is local.
So I guess they help the local economy. You know, the folks got to eat, they got to sleep.
Yeah, you got that.
But it's not an ongoing thing once the project is over. Because a lot of these places, I don't know if any of them have people around. I think they're all being run
remote monitored.
Yeah, they're all remote monitored. People only go there once in a while to inspect things.
Yeah.
They probably got just a handful of people that go around all the different projects inspecting them.
Probably.
So I know that's another way to look at it, is if you're going to develop almost 500 acres of property, you know, how many jobs does that create? Well, not really any in the long term. That was one of the political issues in the spring for our county commissioner race, is that the incumbents are pro-warehouse. And it does provide some jobs, but the opposition candidate wanted to have different kinds of development. If you're going to have development at all, stuff that would have better jobs than just a job in the warehouse.
Yeah.
Higher skilled jobs.
So we just found out from my brother that the storms yesterday we had, you know, all the power problems we had.
He said it took out a fridge.
He lost his fridge because of the power.
His main fridge?
Yep.
Oh, no.
It burned his fridge out. The power going on, off, on, off, on, off, took his fridge out.
His main fridge, oh boy.
Yep, so he's trying to put stuff in our fridge and put stuff in freezers.
And our fridge is crammed full of junk.
Well, no, it's crammed full of garden harvest.
Well,
peppers that need to be canned and green beans and other things.
Well, he's got a couple of coolers.
Well, that's what he's done. He's done the coolers, the fridges that, you know, the fridges we take camping.
Yeah.
He's turned them on. He says thankfully his deep freezer survived because it was on a UPS.
Okay.
But the main fridge obviously wasn't. But he says he's gonna have to throw out the ham and some other things. It's garbage.
Really? Already? I would have thought he could stick that in his deep fridge.
He doesn't
Deep
have
freeze.
room.
Oh, really?
He's filled it up with his other stuff. Remember, he had gone to the local meat farmer and got meat, so. And he had other frozen foods in his freezer, so.
I see.
Yeah.
And of course, we have very little room in ours.
Ours is a tiny freezer in comparison, so. That's fun.
I bet he's pretty mad about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was ridiculous how they were cycling the power. We've been having a lot more power problems at home lately.
It sucks.
And it never used to be quite like this, where it was like on, off, on, off.
And it's not like just once. It's like more than, it's like 3 times in a row. It isn't like the UPSs were screaming, cycling the air conditioning. Like it's just, because we have window air conditioners. And it's just, it all started because I put the stuffed peppers in the oven yesterday. I was making stuffed peppers for dinner, and the hour prep of doing it, like cooking the stuff on the stove and then assembling it, no problem. It was storming. As soon as I put them in the oven, 10 minutes later, then the power just starts going all wacky. So, it's just unfortunate.
Well, I was talking with one of the utility guys that came out when we had a weird problem. We lost power, but there was no apparent cause. It was just a line fuse that went up the road. The guy came out, he took a look at things at our pole to see if it was at our location, and then I was just chatting a little bit. He said they're having a lot of issues with the ash trees that are falling because of the ash borer. Another thing that the Chinese Communist Party sent to America, this insect that's killing all of our ash trees here.
Yeah.
So now we got a lot of these big, a lot of them are big trees, and as they start to rot, they fall. And
Or you get these windstorms with the thunderstorms, and it just rips them up.
yeah.
So, I mean, last night we got home from a meeting, and you had to clear the road of a tree across the road. So.
Yeah, and I think that was one of them that was dead because
yeah,
there was stuff growing on the limbs, like it had been dead.
Yep, sounds that way.
So we're almost to the end of Pennsylvania now.
Hard to believe.
We're in that part of southeast Pennsylvania where it's a circle rather than a straight line, the boundary. There's a certain radius from one of the towns in Delaware, but I forget which one, that defines the state line.
I don't recall.
It's like taking a compass and drawing it on a map, drawing a circle.
Yeah.
Makes this little circular cutout at the bottom of the state instead of being along the Mason-Dixon line.
I wonder if I should just leave our rain jackets in the car.
Oh, you could live dangerously.
There is a chance that there could be thunderstorms.
Grab the umbrella.
We didn't bring any.
Oh, there's none in the back?
No.
Oh.
I couldn't reach them. I was gonna grab one, but we were already running too late, so I was like, I'm just doing rain jackets just in case. I mean, it's sunny at the moment, but there is some development.
Oh yeah, there is a chance.
So maybe I'll just bring them in. What do they call the town that the university's at?
Newark. Newark.
Newark.
Said slightly differently than Newark, New Jersey.
That's always what I think of when I hear Newark.
It's the home of University of Delaware.
It says storms end by 6 p.m. for Newark, Delaware. Damaging winds and large hail with some of the storms. So
That means the next hour.
yeah. Okay, we're bringing the rain jackets just in case. Because I'm not a big fan of getting wet unless unless I'm like taking a shower or in the pool. So.
Usually I at least have an umbrella. I remember sitting in a game at University. It was University of Maryland came to play Princeton, and boy did it rain. I just remember sitting in the stands, just kind of soaked. the one father, he just laughed at me. He saw how I looked.
Yeah.
Totally wet.
Hey, it happens. You don't think you're gonna get a storm, and then you're gonna bring your stuff, and then surprise.
The field was a mess that day.
Yeah.
It wasn't draining very well.
I'll never forget the time we played that Maryland game where it was a flood.
That was it.
That was when you forgot your umbrella?
No, I had my umbrella.
You were just getting wet anyway.
But it was just so much rain, I got wet anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not fun. I'm seeing a lot of roadside produce stands. I love it. Needed more of that. People grow different crops and trade with their neighbors. It's a good thing to do.
You'll have to refresh my memory on navigating through town, though, because it might be a little bit iffy.
Yeah. It says in roughly 5.6 miles, we turn on Hillside. It's a right-hand turn. And then a left on the main. And then a left onto Delaware Avenue. And then a right onto College Ave. But what I'll do is I'll wrap up the stream here in a few minutes. So that way I can pack everything up. We'll enjoy the views for a little bit longer.
Yeah, we should be reaching the Delaware border.
I wanted to remind everybody that we have a Constitution Day event coming up on September 17th at the Hamburg Field House in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. It's from 1 to 5 p.m. There's going to be great speakers. Food trucks will be on site for food, and local groups will be available for information. We will also have a table there for our Windsor Berks Concerned Citizens group, which is our group fighting the solar farm. So if you're interested in learning more about that, or want a yard sign, or you want to purchase a Rita's discount card, we are selling them for $5. They give us $4 profit, which we use towards our legal fees and education for the community. So it's kind of a local fundraiser, but the Rita's card is good for any Rita's in the country. As long as it's not in a theme park, it gives you 10% off your purchase. So it's good for 1 year, so it's good through the end of next August is when it expires. So it's a nice thing to do if you want to help support a cause and you like to get some ice cream sometimes. It's a fun way to do a fundraiser. So, and if you're not able to make it to the event, I will be live streaming it. So consider tuning into the live stream if you're not able to make it in person. We do ask that you give a $10 donation, because those attending in person have to give a $10 donation to enter to help cover the costs of the event.
Yeah, I've got to rent the field house, I think.
Yep.
Might need to be paying the speakers, too, for their travel and time.
I would recommend, if you are attending in person, bring your own chair. They do provide wooden chairs, but as we know from attending Berks County Patriots meetings there, the wooden chairs are not very comfortable for very long. So I'd recommend bring your own, for sure.
I've sat in some wooden chairs that aren't bad, but these are bad.
Yeah. If you bring your own cushions and stuff, it might be doable, but you probably prefer your own chair that's more comfortable. So I do have that flyer posted on my YouTube community page there, and also on Facebook under Gwen's Notes, GWYN''S Notes. So if you want to check it out, you can scan the QR code and get more information about the event, speakers. I know Sam Faddis will be speaking, Jack Maxey will be speaking. There'll be an update on the Brian Cutler committee, because we're trying to get Brian Cutler primaried coming up next year. And there'll be some others. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but it'll be a really fun day. So we're looking forward to that. It is a Sunday. Again, it's 1 to 5 p.m. at the Hamburg Field House, which is behind the fire company. Parking is free, which is nice.
Yeah, there's lots of parking, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. Hey John, good to see you. I know it's been a long time since we've seen you, John. It's been a busy summer for us. Doing the solar research, doing the garden. Babies is our latest adventure that we're starting.
Well, I'd say we're in Delaware now.
So
Just outside of Newark, Delaware.
we're headed off to cheer on the Princeton Tigers against the Delaware Blue Hens. Hopefully Princeton can finally get their first win of the season. They've suffered 2 very close losses. They were ranked 10 at the start of the season, and we played number 9 Louisville, and we lost 2-1 in regulation. And then we played the national champs from last year, who was ranked, I believe, number 1 or 2 at the time we played them on Sunday, and we lost in overtime to. Apparently, it was really hot. It was like 100 degrees on the turf. So our goalie had a game of her career that day with the number of saves. So she ended up being Ivy Defensive Player of the Week, which is pretty cool. So hopefully we're going to bring them some good luck today. I always call it my birthday luck because they always have 2 games on my birthday weekend because tomorrow's my birthday. So hopefully we'll get 2 birthday wins. So
Sunday is Rutgers. That'll be a rough one.
Rutgers, apparently right now, Delaware has the highest scoring team in the nation, and Rutgers has the best goalie in the nation right now in terms of save percentage. So they're not going to be easy games by any means, and we've lost 8 starters plus another starter who's taken the year off to train for the USA team for the Olympic qualifications. So really we're down 9 starters, so we only have really 3 returning starters, and it's interesting. So it's gonna be rough, but hopefully they can do it. Aw, thanks for the happy birthday wishes, Jeremy. John says his niece just graduated from Delaware.
Oh, wow.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be driving through campus on the way. Guess we'll miss some of the game at the rate we're going.
We'll probably miss the anthem, unfortunately. It says we're going to get there at 5:05. The game is supposed to start at 5. It is what it is. I mean, John says, happy birthday. Thanks, John. Tomorrow, we're going to be putting together our beehive, so I was thinking I might try to do some recording of that to kind of show you guys, like, unboxing it, because we've never done this before, so it'll be kind of exciting. We won't actually be putting the foundations into the hive. What do they call them? Drawing a blank on this. What do they call them?
The frames?
Yeah, the frames. I guess maybe it's just frames. Because typically people buy a colony of bees and they put them in their hive. We're actually having a professional extract already honeycomb and put them into the frame. So essentially he's going to be using really large rubber bands to frame the comb, so that's why we don't put the foundations in this time, because he'll have to do all the rubber banding, so it'll be an experience. So yeah, on point 6 Dad, we turn right onto Hillside and then left onto Main.
Point 6, huh?
Yeah. So probably what we'll do is might go live on Sunday if the weather's good on the way to the Rutgers game, and chat some more then. And hopefully by then we'll have our beehive put together and can share some photos with you guys. And hope that our bee suits arrive in time, which was an interesting thing to order, because bee suit sizing is not intuitive at all. They're very bulky and they don't exactly tell you how to, like, pick your size.
Are we turning at this light?
Yes.
To the right?
To the right, and then make a left onto the main street, which is the next intersection.
Hillside.
John says there's beehive. Sounds interesting. They have beehive exhibits at the Kutztown Festival every year. Oh, cool. I know when the hive box got delivered to my brother's house, who lives right near our neighbors who have actual hives already, they were quite interested in the box because they could smell the wax on it, because ours is waxed with honeybee wax. So the bees were interested. So my brother took a video and sent it to me. It was kind of cool. They were checking it out. They're like, hey, this smells good. I like it. So to me, that means it passed inspection. If the neighbor's bees are kind of interested.
Left or straight?
We want to go left.
This is definitely where the nav tool's helpful.
Yeah.
'Cause I can't ever remember.
Well, there's a lot of one-way streets through here, which is kind of...
I kind of know the first turn there, but this one is not so clear.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. We'll hopefully catch you guys on Sunday if I don't get the video posted tomorrow for the Beehive. We'll try to go live on the way to the Rutgers game, which is a home game for Princeton. If not, we'll go live after the Rutgers game. Give you some updates on how things are going. I got to get ready to hop out of the car. So thanks for joining us. We hope you have a good rest of your evening, and we'll catch you next time. Take care. And there's the University of Delaware sign. Go Tigers.